Well, welcome everybody. It's great to see so many people who are interested in their facilities, whether you are a lessee or whether you're actually an owner. I've been in this role for 2.5 years now. I don't come from a tennis background. I actually come from a sports background where you go to a venue, you say how much does it cost, you walk in the morning and it's all ready to go, you pay your money, and at the end of the day you walk out and someone else has to clean it, look after it, repair it, etc. Here we have a lot of people who on a day-to-day basis are looking after massive assets as volunteers, and I'm absolutely astounded about the effort that our volunteers put in to make sure tennis centres operate efficiently. In the 21st century we're moving forward. I think we've rediscovered our role as a governing body. We still manage a tennis centre, which is important, but we also need to be a leader and a helper for our sports. Our tennis development unit, which is led by Jackson, is vitally involved in everything we do. Despite the fact that it's tennis development, they do have a major role with grassroots development. They have a major role with facilities development. You know, we work pretty hard in the office to help clubs and associations look for funding, and we've got a pretty good strike record. You know, sometimes that's because a politician might want some money in a certain area, but often it's because of the hard work that a CTO has done or Brett Andrews has done. So I'm not quite sure where we're up in terms of dollar amounts, but it's significant six figures in the last 12 months. So my main message is that our role is to help wherever we're needed. The better our members operate, the better our sport will be. You know, whilst we all live down there, that doesn't help the sport. What helps the sport is getting out and helping people with their needs. So that's the message I'd like to leave today.
Really important, I think, that Tennis New South Wales and Tennis Australia are both present at these sorts of occasions, because we're really closely aligned in what we're trying to do, not just in facility development and management, but across the whole of the sport. So thank you very much for having me. The Australian Open, which is the cash cow for tennis, and obviously the more economic growth we get out of that event, and events like the Medibank International here, the more we can invest back in the game. So we do this using the 4 C's. Using community, which is everybody in the room fits into that. That's a fairly generic term, including local governments. Coaches, who are the deliverers of our sport in so many ways. Obviously the first experience people get is often with a coach, and they're the salespeople for the sport. Through competition, we've got Andy Shimatek here, who's developing a new competition pathway here in New South Wales. Really important way to engage people, and it's a large motivator for people getting in the sport. Personally, I don't have children at the moment, but I've never heard a 5-year-old child picking up a racket saying that they want to end up being a decent social player. They all want to win Wimbledon or the Australian Open. And finally, champions. We need these pathways, so the community engagement, the quality coaches, the competition opportunities to lead to champions. But we've spent about $9.4 million to date in just over 3 years in the National Court Rebate Scheme. It's influenced, I think, to today 932 new or resurfaced courts, which is a huge success story. The good news is that 2008, which the survey related to, was the first increase in people playing tennis for it was close to 7 years. In fact, there'd been a bit of a decline. This coincides with the introduction of a call to action for junior players through the Hot Shots program, through providing coach membership and promoting the coach through a national body. So it's the most popular sport still amongst any sports that require organisation or a partner to play. And that's a massive testimony to the work that's done on the ground. We have this huge workforce of volunteers, centre operators and community tennis officers that are trying to drive the sport, and to be in that position is really quite incredible when you look at what we're competing with. With MLC Tennis Hot Shots, the National Kids Starter Programme, after a relatively slow start, which involved promoting and signing coaches on to be deliverers of this sport, it's now a professionally delivered a starter program that gets national promotion through things like the Medibank International, the Australian Open, and last year we had 194 kids playing. About 140,000 of those were in schools programs, so we're really actively targeting kids. In terms of healthy communities, providing programs like Hot Shots. It's not just about Hot Shots. We're developing programs that are based on fitness rather than tennis. So here, no rackets in hands, but things like cardio tennis to try and engage people who want to get back into some kind of sport. We also want to create integrated communities. So we're providing options, and this is done certainly at Tennis New South Wales, and is providing activities for at-risk groups. So you'll see some wheelchair activities at the Medibank International, but there are programs throughout the year and tournaments specifically for wheelchair athletes, Indigenous programs and so on. And what we're focused on really, and what we want to impress on people that operate venues, is the need to be inclusive. The tools that we offer in order to influence better management and to influence better facilities. Obviously the National Court Rebate Scheme is the big one. We also have a facilities loan scheme, which is up to $80,000, low document, low interest loans, which can help bridge the gap when funding is required. And we also have a facility management toolkit, which is a centralised resource that all clubs, local governments and individuals in fact have access to through their community tennis officers, which helps everybody locate the right resources and things like management guides, volunteer education and so forth.
So first of all, I just want to explain, and Glenn touched on it earlier, the structure we have at Tennis New South Wales, very similar to Tennis Australia. We have community tennis, which is focused on grassroots, facilities and competitions. They're the three areas that we're really trying to drive participation through. Mark's here today, who represents our commercial/athlete development department. He's focused on driving the Sydney Olympic Park Tennis Centre, which supports then in turn my department and a few others from a funding perspective to go and do what we do, hence that interest here on site. But he's also focused with his team on development and tournaments as well. And if you've got any questions in those particular areas, I should connect you with Mark in the breaks. We've got a corporate services department, as you'd expect, and it's interesting for some of you to understand that Tennis Australia also have staff here in the States. So in the larger states, they have people focused on the Medibank International, for example, the National Academy that operates down at Homebush on site, which is our high performance program, and also in coach development. And Joe Kabizniak's here today, who's representing coach development. He's a Tennis Australia employee. But what's really important to understand is that even though he's actually paid for by Tennis Australia, he works very closely with our community tennis team and our athlete development team. So again, that's replicating that alignment right down the pathway. Now here's an example of the alignment that we have created. So our strategic plans are aligned from a national and state level, the same objectives in terms of grassroots, facilities and investing in the game. But importantly, our facility development strategies are aligned as well. So in summary, from a staffing perspective, we have 9 community tennis officers. 3 of those are in the metropolitan area, located down here at headquarters. 6 of them are in the country. We've got someone focused on competitions, someone focused on facilities, and we've got some administrative support there as well. You can probably see pretty clearly that directly aligns with our strategic plans, so we're investing around those strategic themes, and we continue to invest in staff that are going to be able to connect with our members and councils. So these are the areas that we're really focused on in 2011. More active players, better management at facilities, better first tennis experiences, more people playing, MLC tennis hot shots, and better facilities. Now, I've just shared with you some of our goals for 2011 that we can't achieve without your help. There's some of our KPIs for this year that Tennis Australia also have. This gives you an idea where our focus will be as community tennis in 2011. But I think it's a really nice slide which sums up the community programming but also the facility focus that we have as well. I just wanted to finish by reinforcing our contribution to the community. I'll pop these up on the screen as well. We're about active players, healthy people. Local kids playing MLC tennis hot shots, cardio tennis for the athletes, for the adults, Tennis New South Wales Premier League for the serious competitors. We're about economic stimulus with Tennis Australia's support. We've got the National Court Rebate Scheme, the Facility Loan Scheme, and we're about integrated communities. We've got disability and diversity programs. Now, a lot of that, I understand, councils are all about as well. So there's very much some shared objectives in there, and I think what we need to do is make that information more readily available to you guys so we can work together in each of those areas. And programming options for all participation segments. For me, today was really about these things. We want to achieve shared objectives. We want lots of people playing tennis, no barriers to participation. We want more active players, people living healthy lifestyles. We want well-managed and welcoming facilities. Now, our economic impact, we want joint submissions, strategic submissions to state and federal governments. We can do that together. We want a common language and expectation across our facilities. And we want more effective planning. I talked about regional versus local planning. And there's economies of scale that fall out of that. So I think from our perspective, there's a lot of things we can do together. It's been fantastic to get this group together. I understand that Brett had even more people that wanted to come along, so that's a consideration for us next year. It's exciting to see so many LGAs here in the room, and it's exciting to see so many clubs represented as well. We need to start planning together. We need to start to understand objectives from both sides, and we need to start to plan collectively. And hopefully some of the sessions this afternoon encourage that.
Courtcraft, our company, builds a wide variety of sporting installations. We build hockey fields, we build netball courts. We're working on a velodrome at the moment down in Bowral. A little snapshot of the kinds of activities, of the jobs we've currently got contracted. Now, there are three main areas of activity that Courtcraft does in tennis court constructions, which is obviously new construction, rebuilds and upgrades, which I suppose is the biggest thing because a lot of facilities are already there, and the larger kind of maintenance. If I'm going to talk about the most important issues in facility development, they'd be planning and specifications in the first place, budget for construction and operational cost over the installation life, and we frequently find that projects are under budgeted, and contractor selection is extremely important, and then the quality control process in construction of courts. Now, the National Tennis Strategy includes for the construction of economically viable centres using Grand Slam surfaces, that is cushioned acrylics, hard courts, clay courts and natural grass courts. The acrylic court bases, both concrete and asphalt, is used for acrylic court bases, with the exception of courts that have certain structural requirements. The base of choice is definitely asphalt. It is a seamless pavement which is significantly softer than concrete, and all surfaces adhere much better to asphalt. Concrete invariably cracks, and to handle the cracks it has unsightly construction joints, saw cuts, but then it's cracks wherever it wants to in any case. Primarily because we can't build the kinds of slabs that are required to prevent that from occurring. They're just too expensive. Surfaces. Plexi cushion is the Australian Open surface, which is a rather wonderful surface for tennis. It's colourful. A high standard of surety of grip, predictable and consistent play characteristics, which predictable and consistent is what the most singly important thing that they're looking for in a high-level surface. And it, of course, has a shock-absorbing characteristic because of the rubber particles which are within it. The next surface is DecoTurf, which is available through our company, but generally not used in Australia, which is the American Open surface. It's a similar surface to PlexiPave, but Plexi Cushion, but it is a harder surface. It's still cushioned, but it is harder. It is a faster surface. It plays about 25% faster. Natural grass, we've built quite a few natural grass courts over the years. We have a strong association with the guys at Wimbledon that we visit and chat to often, and have their benefit of their expertise in our organisation. But we've spent most of our career taking natural grass courts out rather than putting them in, and haven't been requested to do so for a long time. But of course clay courts are now the flavour of the month. Again, we used to build a lot of clay courts. Then we took out a huge amount of clay courts. We basically put synthetic grass on top, and now suddenly they're all the conversation again. I cannot see that getting much broader than a few clubs who have the budget to do them. Anyone who does have the budget to do them, though, they'll be a wonderful centre and well utilised. People love clay courts. Of course, synthetic grass is not a Grand Slam surface, but is going to be the court that a lot of clubs continue to use. And synthetic grass, as most people would know, is essentially a carpet. It's made in a carpet factory. Over there they'll make a wool berber, and over here they make synthetic grass. It's described by the denier, by the pile height, by the weight of the green stuff. The weight of the green stuff per square metre gives you the cost of the carpet. The more it weighs, the higher it costs.
As Brett mentioned, Tennis New South Wales commissioned our company, Inside Edge Sport and Leisure Planning, to prepare the state master plan. But really we're looking at the current facility mix across New South Wales. You'll hear that word mix quite a lot. We're looking at the current distribution of facilities, and also looking at geographic areas of significant change. And the immediate building of facilities is something that needs to evolve and will be organic from within your organisations. And again, Tennis New South Wales will be a facilitator in helping that happen. But the master plan doesn't build new facilities. What it does do is make better use of existing facilities. It looks at ways to provide better quality and facility environments, and you'll probably hear that term welcoming environments for tennis. That's an objective, as well as developing better industry and community partnerships, and that's already underway with the work Brett's doing and the work John's doing in conjunction with Tennis New South Wales. What's driving also strategically is New South Wales population growth and some of the projections. It's come down to the fact that a one-size-fits-all strategy for facility development is not going to happen and won't be successful. So we need to look at the fluctuations in participation and population. Significant investment is required across the state to improve facilities. We played around with trying to put a figure on that and then realised quickly that that it's practically impossible to do that. But you know, you throw around estimations of $60 to $70 million if it was available right now, might improve the facility landscape across New South Wales. Obviously that investment isn't available, so we need to look at strategies in which we can chip away over the next 5 to 10 years. We're looking at the current facility provision across the state. We're working off a system that Tennis New South Wales have been able to develop a database of known facilities. Some of that information was also tested and collected with a number, I think about 30, 35 local councils. And that's a particular area that, as we move forward, Tennis New South Wales wants to build and engage with this particular group to be able to have better information about the facilities that to enable this master plan and the strategies to keep evolving over time, so it doesn't become just a mere snapshot. There's a recommended number of, or percentage breakdown of where nationally Tennis Australia would like to get to in terms of the mix of types of venues that are provided. So we just went through a simple exercise of comparing New South Wales with the national context. And I guess the key areas of note there is obviously a much larger proportion of local venues compared nationally, a smaller number of medium and sub-regional venues, and also tracking fairly comparatively regional venues with national venues. So at that larger centre level, the percentage mix seems almost right, but there's still a little bit more work to do in that area. Looking at an overall reduction in local facilities, but increases in medium and sub-regional, and providing regional scale facilities in key growth areas. And there's a number of those growth areas that are identified in the master plan, and they also need to match with the existing facility landscape as well as where we see the growth, and also retaining and developing Sydney Olympic Park facility as the key national centre. In terms of trying to achieve on the framework and looking at what those facility mix objectives are and going through them, each of them, we're looking at no overall net loss of courts. We're really focusing on promoting that hierarchy of provision from those smaller venues all the way through to regional facilities, but also making sure that the distribution of facilities is there and accessible, and facilities are provided in the right areas. And again, promoting ongoing stakeholder partnerships. Again, Tennis New South Wales will be facilitating development and projects, but it'll be the rest of you that will actually be delivering them on the ground. Strategic initiatives that will evolve over the next few years, looking at programming initiatives that mirror the demographic change. We've already heard today about some of the motivators of people in the way they consume the game, so there'll be some significant work in programs to suit the market rather than pushing programs out there and hoping people to play. So that'll be something that facility operators will need to consider. Developing more planning information and tools and resources. It's a key driver of both state and national organisations to give you the most up-to-date information to help you run your facilities.
I'm going to talk to you today about some of the processes that I've gone through, the good and the bad and the ugly, of how I've been working with the local tennis clubs to get to where we are today, but based on a lot of asset management and business plans. Try and get people motivated to sponsor maintenance. There's just not that interest out there for it. So we're actually at the point now where we've had great new facilities. They're starting to come of age, and what are we going to do and how are we going to afford to replace them. We actually took New South Wales Tennis's the Facility Development Guide, and we actually used that for the basis of our rec strategy of what we would do with tennis courts. And the Eurobodalla, we actually cover 110 k's of coastline, and so whilst we have 3 major town centres, we also have the Nelligans and the Churrosses and the Browleys and all those lovely coastal towns. So it's not reasonable that in our area that we could only put tennis courts in the main town centres, that we actually need to still have them in some of the other areas. So the next question was, well, if we were going to have those centres, how could we assure that the community could look after them and that council continue to make sure that they stayed as good high quality assets in the future? The basic plan of the process that I went through to try and achieve this was, first we'd identify what levels of service we had in providing tennis facilities. We'd then look at the demand, what we actually needed to have in the Shire. We'd start to work on the life cycle plans so we could start getting financial projections, and hopefully at the end of this we would have an asset management plan and a financial plan. Given that off the figures of a general life cycle costs of $3,500 a year, the highest income that any of our courts was meeting in the whole Shire was just on $1,400. So straight away some alarm bells went off for me. So I decided to take it a next step further, and instead of just promoting it as asset management to tennis, I actually started to go and talk to the tennis clubs and start to show what this meant for some of these individual tennis clubs. They then went through, and not me, but the actual members, and this is how we got the clubs involved, went through and worked out what they believed from their history of the courts was the remaining life left on their facility. We estimated what the possible replacement costs would be. We allocated an annual maintenance cost, and again, this allows the clubs to still be heavily involved as a volunteer. So then what we did is we looked at their income expenditure. They agreed it had to be $10,000. They went through this process with me. They agreed that that was the time frames. We agreed that's when we'd replace it, and we agreed that that had to be the correct dollar figure. So then when we looked at their income, and don't fall over when you look at our figures because I'm sure they're much lower than what you're used to seeing, the reality was this particular tennis club were rolling over between $3,500 and $4,000 at the end of each year. So that was well short of the $10,000 that they needed to be looking at. We started to work with the tennis clubs how we could start to turn this around. How could we make tennis sustainable? How could we make tennis self-sufficient so that no matter what else was going on in the Shire, the tennis facilities would be safe and secure because the community were doing what they could to maintain them, and that taking them away would be really no benefit to council. Now, I've kept the business plan really simple. The last thing you want to do when working with community groups is give them booklets to read through. They don't have time, they're volunteers, they're already busy, and plus they could be out playing tennis. I have to congratulate Tennis New South Wales and Tennis Australia because the resources that have been made available to me in the last 2 years are far significant to what was there even 4 and 5 years ago.
The club health checks, it's a way of trying to, it's a way of a tennis centre or whatnot. A tennis centre can do can sit down and fill in a bunch of statistics and figures to get an idea of where they sit from a benchmarking perspective against like facilities around the country. Tennis Australia works with the University of South Australia in analysing this data to provide back to the associations who complete it. So for example, you'd fill in some statistics that gives you a yield per court, so how much money you're making per court per annum, and you might be a 6-court centre and you can compare that figure with other 6-court centres, and so that you can say, well, we're underachieving compared to the national average, or we're doing better than the national average, in which case we might be tapping on your door and say, hey, what are the great things you're doing, tell us, so that we can try and get the rest of the, in our case the state, but in Tennis Australia's case the country, up to speed. For us as a tennis industry, it helps us identify our strengths and weaknesses. So if we see a lot of underachieving facilities in certain areas, whether it's operational costs are too high or they're just not getting enough use of their courts, we can start addressing those issues and focus on them as a key part of our strategies for addressing tennis participation. It assists us with our management guidance, so doing audits and that sort of thing, coming out, working with the guys and trying to develop some solutions for where there's deficiencies. and determine some service priorities for those, provide tennis administration with leverage for stakeholder assistance. So again, where we can show that whether we've got good results or we've got a steady improvement in results, that helps us as a governing body go to state government and ask for grants and assistance and to gain recognition from them as well.